You texted them back today, even though you already know how this ends. Not because you are weak, not because you don't know better. Something in you reached for the familiar shape of pain and called it chemistry. You have done this before. Different face, same script. Same slow fade from excitement into confusion into the quiet ache you have learned to call love. Why does it always end up here? But the real reason goes much deeper than you think. This is not a story about bad luck. This is not a story about low self-esteem, no matter how many times you have told yourself that. What is happening inside you right now has a name. And once you hear it, you will never see your relationships the same way again. Carl Jung called it a complex. Not in the way we use the word today. Not having a complex about your appearance or your intelligence. A complex, in Jung's sense, is a cluster of memory and emotion that forms early, usually in childhood, around a wound that never fully healed. It sits in the unconscious like a magnet. Magnets do not care whether what they pull toward them is good for you. They only pull toward what matches their shape. Here is what almost no one tells you. Your nervous system did not learn to recognize love in childhood. It learned to recognize a pattern. If love arrived wrapped in inconsistency, if affection came and went without warning, if you had to earn attention through performance or earn peace through silence, your body encoded that pattern as what closeness feels like. Not what closeness should feel like. What it does feel like. This is not something you decided. No child sits in a room and reasons their way into thinking chaos equals love. The equation was built for you, quietly, one ordinary evening at a time, long before you had any language to question it. So when you meet someone calm, steady, emotionally available, something in you does not relax. Something in you gets bored, or suspicious, or worse, nothing happens at all. No spark, no pull. Have you ever wondered why the good ones sometimes feel so unremarkable? It is because your nervous system was never trained to recognize safety as desirable. It was trained to recognize the specific, familiar shape of instability as home. Then you meet someone who runs hot and cold. Someone who is affectionate on Tuesday and distant on Thursday. Someone who makes you work for their approval the way you worked for it as a child. Your whole body says yes. Not because this person is good for you, because they are legible to you. You already know the choreography before the music even starts. Is it any wonder you call that chemistry? The Jungian analyst James Hollis spent decades studying exactly this pattern in adult relationships. His central argument is unsettling, and once you sit with it, oddly hopeful. He says we do not choose partners primarily to be happy. We choose partners, unconsciously, to finish something, to complete unfinished business from the first relationships that shaped us. Some part of the psyche believes, without ever saying it aloud, that if this person can finally love me the way my parent could not, I will be free. This connects to something Jung called projection. You rarely fall for the actual person standing in front of you. You fall for the image your unconscious paints onto them, built from every unresolved figure who came before. The withholding parent, the one who left, the one whose approval always felt 1 inch out of reach. You are not choosing pain because you think you deserve it. You are choosing a specific, coded version of pain because some part of you believes this time you can resolve it. This time you can be enough. This time you can make them stay or soften or finally see you the way you needed to be seen decades ago. What if the ache you keep returning to is not a wound, but a wish? Here is the part that deserves more compassion than most people give themselves. This pattern was never a flaw in your character. It was once a solution. If you grew up needing to stay hyper-attuned to someone's shifting moods just to feel safe, that hyper-attunement kept you safe then. Your child self did not choose that wiring. Your child self survived because of it. The problem is not that the strategy was wrong. The problem is that the strategy never got the update. It is still running, decades later, in a nervous system that is no longer in that house, still bracing for a storm that already passed. That is the counterintuitive twist hiding inside all of this. It is not weakness driving you back to the same type, again and again. It is hope. Misplaced, exhausting, unconscious hope. You keep casting people in an old role, hoping the performance ends differently this time. But the ending never changes, because you never change the script. You only change the actor. Jung wrote something that applies here more precisely than almost anywhere else. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That is what is happening every time you say you just have bad luck with people, or you always attract the same type. That is not fate. That is an old pattern running the show while you sit in the passenger seat, calling the crash a coincidence. Notice how this plays out today, in the smallest moments. The match on the dating app, whose bio reads like a warning you decide to ignore. The way you feel calm around someone who barely texts back, and anxious around someone who texts too much. The way you interpret a partner's silence as mysterious instead of what it usually is, which is simply absence. The way a friend describes their new situationship to you. And some part of you feels a flicker of envy for a dynamic you know, if you are honest, would exhaust you within a month. The way you sense the very first red flag on the very first date. And instead of leaving, you lean in closer, telling yourself you can be the one who finally makes it work. Doesn't some part of you already know how this chapter ends before you have even finished the first page? You already know how to spot the pattern before it starts. You have always known. The question was never whether you could see it. The question is whether you are willing to stop performing the same rescue for a role that was never yours to save. Healing this does not mean forcing yourself to feel nothing for what once felt like home. It does not mean swearing off love or treating every calm person with suspicion because calm once meant nothing was happening. It means slowly, patiently teaching your nervous system a new definition of safety. One calm relationship, one honest moment, one boring Tuesday at a time, until steady finally starts to feel like enough. It means learning to sit inside a quiet that used to feel like rejection until one day it just feels like peace. You will still feel the old pull sometimes. That is not failure. That is the complex doing exactly what complexes do. It has done its job for years, and old wiring does not retire quietly just because you finally understand it. But understanding is where the choosing begins. And you get to choose whether you follow the pull or finally, consciously, let it go. You texted them back today. Next time, you might not. And that hesitation, that half-second pause before you hit send, is the unconscious becoming conscious. It is the first sentence of a different script entirely.